As a certified life coach, I have a mission for my clients, and that is to identify and remove roadblocks from your path to personal success. And now it's about time I did the same for myself. My current roadblock is the massive pile of excuses I've made up not to launch a podcast, because everyone is doing it, being one of them. A topic I am particularly passionate about is attachment styles and how I can get to know myself better. In this podcast, you'll tag along the journey of me identifying where my anxious attachment came from, how it's manifesting itself in my life, and how I can, with knowledge, become a more secure version of myself. I pray you'll find it insightful, helpful, and occasionally funny. Welcome to Becoming Secure with Mag's Mindset. In the previous episode, I shared when my self-help journey began and what triggered it, and now it feels about time to address what caused the insecure behavior to begin with. This episode might be slightly triggering to some people, and I trust and I pray that you recognize that this is my narrative. There's always more sides to the story. I hope my story can be relatable and that it might create solace for some of you, knowing you are not alone. With a bird's eye view, looking at my upbringing, I am tremendously privileged. I grew up in a home filled with love, open communication, laughter, and a lot of fun. It was always a safe space to come home. I have fantastic memories with my family. Not to mention, I was born and raised in Norway, which is one of the greatest countries in the world. I have struggled to know whether I am even entitled to share my story because there are people out there with deeply tragic upbringings who have a much more powerful story to tell. Mine isn't tragic or devastating. I simply recognize that everything I was exposed to shaped me for good and for bad. As human beings, we are complex and much more impressionable than we realize. I've said it before and I will say it again. We copy the behavior of those we surround ourselves with, and therefore there is power in choosing to spend time and energy with those who lift us up and nurture us, as opposed to what's familiar but detrimental to our mental being. I am able to communicate this productively because I am no longer angry or deeply hurt by certain elements from my upbringing. I can look at the people who influenced me in a negative manner with compassion and understanding because they too copied familiar behavior and did not necessarily question how it impacted the people around them. Personally, I've had a complicated relationship with one of my caregivers. Today we're able to communicate and coexist in a beautiful way because we have had numerous confrontations and conversations around the topic that I'm about to address. To begin with, the following information is retrieved from studies done by John Bowlby, a British psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. He has done studies in children's development and how it influences how we attach to people as adults. And one groundbreaking note I found in my own personal development journey is when I understood the following. An emotionally present father plays a crucial role in a child's emotional and psychological development, particularly for daughters, by influencing how they perceive themselves and interact in future relationships. A father's emotional presence provides a stable and secure attachment base, helping a daughter to develop trust in others and in herself. Consistent emotional responsiveness from a father teaches daughters that relationships can be safe, loving, and dependable, forming the blueprints for secure relationship later in life. You see, where I struggled to identify it as a trauma or a wound is because my father was always present, involved, and engaged in both mine and my brother's lives. This was until he experienced a deep loss in his own life, losing both of his parents. Like I said in the previous episode, I recognize that any caregiver has their own set of traumas that they need to heal, and they too are only human. I am very well aware that my father loves me deeply and never meant to harm me in any way, shape, or form. However, I still recognize that while he was grieving, healing, and abruptly disengaging in my life, it shaped how I view myself. Because this all began at age 13 for me, a very crucial time in my development as a teenager and a woman. This was a time where I needed a masculine and nurturing father figure. It was until this past year, 14 years later, that my father and I reconnected and began rebuilding our relationship. A girl needs her father figure to treat her like a princess and show her just how valuable and worthy she is, and I didn't have that. Moreover, my older brothers, who could have taken on this role, copied the masculine behavior they were exposed to and did not recognize until recently the harm that it had on their little sister. What makes it complex is that I didn't realize the impact it had on me either until I was an adult who was struggling deeply in commitments with men and began a healing journey of my own. I want to again emphasize that I have a fantastic and transparent relationship with my brothers today, and they are very much present. They take care of me and they show up for me in any season of my life. I was able to identify these factors with knowledge about parental influence. With theory, I could relate it to my own experience and recognize where my influence was flawed. I did not blame anyone for how it turned out, because frankly, I'm quite proud of who I built myself to be once I took accountability for becoming a respectable woman. This process is not linear though, and putting theory into practice is easier said than done. This is why I encourage you to be kind to yourself and be patient in the process. Every small step in the direction of who you desire to be is fantastic. If you don't know who you want to be, an easy and relatable exercise towards recognizing what you want is to look at what makes you jealous. That's where I started. When I got a life coach in 2016, I went in with an intention of curing my jealous behavior. I told her straight up, I no longer want my jealousy to take over my decision making. I want to get rid of it. It was in that process I learned that jealousy is a fantastic compass, because cognitive appraisal theories argue that jealousy arises from how we interpret and value a situation. For example, perceiving a rival as a threat trigger an emotion and physical response. Historically, I got jealous when my partner was devoting attentions towards another woman. I'm not necessarily referring to cheating, but simply spending time with friends that happens to be women. What I wanted was to feel secure in a relationship with a loyal man, but the only thing that was within my control is what kind of man I choose. I cannot control whether my partner is loyal, but I can trust myself to be a woman worth choosing. This includes having the self-respect to walk away when I'm no longer a priority. My ex would cheat on me, and at the time I didn't have the strength to walk away. But what that situation taught me was that I had a direction. I knew how terrible it felt to choose a man who wasn't loyal, and knowing that I was choosing an inconsistent man over my own best interest, it was devastating. Day by day, I would learn about theories that would make me more self-aware and tap into my feminine strength and energy. Sadia Khan, a psychologist specializing in relationship dynamics, explains that women who choose men who cheat on them are more likely to get cheated on again. This is because we are teaching them that their behavior doesn't have any consequences, because we won't leave them anyways. On the other hand, men who choose women who cheat will find themselves in similar cycle. However, the woman is more likely to leave the man because she no longer respects him. And this can, of course, go both ways, I suppose. I know that this is triggering information because I was really triggered when I learned it. There are people out there who are choosing to be in a relationship with someone who cheats, who has difficulties breaking out or healing it. Here are my solace for you. There are exceptions for every rule. Once I found myself in a situation where I cheated on an ex-partner and I felt utterly disgusted by my own behavior, I vowed to myself that I was not going to have anything to do with that version of myself. I did not want to be a manipulative cheater, and if I was able to make that decision, others can too. My daily affirmation was, I am loyal, I am loyal, I am loyal. And I would repeat this daily, and especially in situations where I could cheat. This is because I recognized the pain it had caused me when I was on the receiving end of that. Yet I was able to do the same to someone else. I was so ashamed of the hypocrisy and wanted nothing to do with that. Moreover, I recognized that if I want to attract a loyal man, I have to be a loyal woman. But I digress. Circling back to when I wanted to cure my jealousy. What I learned in coaching and through personal experience was to begin listening to and observing what made me so jealous in the first place, and how I could actually use this for something productive as opposed to a trait I found to be negative about myself. I wanted the kind of relationship that you see on TikTok, where there's a couple who tell you about how they're still in love and they're like 90. And when they're sharing their secrets as to how that happened, it could be anything from they were laughing a lot together, or they never went to bed angry. They would always solve conflict, always communicating, even when it's painful, doing the work. We all know that it exists because we see it. It's just not typical anymore. And maybe people just aren't loud enough about love because it's so complex today. But there are a couple out there who made it successfully because they put in the work. That's what I believe, and that's what I want. But it was really painful to realize that I wasn't going to get that in any of the relationships that I was in, when either they were cheating, anti-committal, or even had communicated that they didn't want to. I just didn't want to believe it. I thought that they would change their mind if they were just in love enough, I think essentially I believed that I could change them. And that was a terrible, terrible way to think, because I wasn't ever going to accomplish what I wanted in those relationships. But it was so fucking painful to let go, pardon my language. I didn't really know how to go about it. But learning about these theories helped me slowly feed my mind with the kind of mentality that I needed to have when it came to relationships. I needed to separate myself from the person and not put them on a pedestal. I needed to recognize that God has created this perfect life for me, and my life has very much fallen into place always. So I know that when He knows how much I want to get married and have a family, that when the time is right, the right person is going to show up. I just have to be able to release whatever I'm not letting go of. But that was really, really hard. And frankly, it's still really, really hard. Me being jealous wasn't always related to a relationship, but it could also be what other people had that I didn't have, and how I could get what I didn't currently have. I used to be so jealous of my friends' summer vacations growing up because they traveled overseas and got to experience exciting tropical destinations. My family did not prioritize those types of vacations when I was young. So as an adult, I made sure to put myself in a financial circumstance that allowed me to travel to tropical destinations. Bringing it back to relationship, I was able to make note of what I wanted wherever I felt jealous. And this way, I could put an effort into moving forward. It really required the willingness to learn, the discipline to stay focused on my studies, as well as working extra hours outside of my responsibilities as a student. Two valuable qualities one can develop as individuals are discipline and consistency. With that, there is magical how far you can go outside of your comfort zone. This tool became so handy in many situations, and every time I found myself thinking I can't do it, I would remind myself that I can, because I have done it before. When Chris Williamson guested the Diary of a CEO podcast, he simply stated that confidence is having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. And I have proven to myself time and time again that I can in fact do it if I want it enough. This is something that I learned through job hunting, in new relationships, in my studies, in getting a degree, in completing projects at work. All of this when trying to create a new lifestyle with diets, when I started my new lifestyle with training and working out, and putting my discipline and consistency in all of those areas helped me to become a very resilient person. And this stack of evidence that I can in fact do things that I don't always think that I will is just so powerful. And I love that about me. And I know that I wasn't like a A+ student at all. If anything, I had poor grades. I was really average, and I needed to put a lot of extra effort into being even remotely curious about learning the things that I in fact needed to learn to pass my grades. But I know that it wasn't necessarily that effort that allowed me to get to where I am today. But I know that consistently doing things that you don't necessarily feel like doing is always going to help you to push your limits, especially exceed your own expectations of what you believe you are able to do. As humans, we're experts at setting limits to what we can accomplish, but at the end of the day, those are only self-sabotaging excuses. I consistently taught myself that I was able to exceed my own and society's expectations of what I'm able to do. If Stephen Hawking could become a world-renowned theoretical physicist, cosmologist, and an author while being attached to a wheelchair, you can get over your pile of excuses as to why you can't accomplish what you desire. In 2010, a Norwegian adventurer, Lars Monsen, served as an expedition leader in a docuseries No Boundaries. In this series, he guided participants with various physical disabilities through demanding terrains, demonstrating that limitations can be overcome with determination and teamwork. Some participants, of which literally had no feet, yet made it to the top of a mountain in Norway. This series proved incredible determination and discipline, and it is still inspiring me till this day. Jealousy is a great compass to direct you towards what you want. And once you can identify what you want, then you're already halfway there. I believe in you, so should you. And if you now have the urge to say that it's easier said than done, recognize that that too is an excuse not to start somewhere. A lot of things are easier said than done, and it's up to you to make forward momentum. And if you fail, try again. I know that many can relate to this and find help and solace in learning more about it. It is also helpful knowing you are not alone and that many share your experience. I hope and I believe that if we all share our experiences and what that might look like in our life, we might just find that we are more similar than we think. By shedding a light on the parts of us that we are ashamed of, the vulnerable parts, we can all find validation in each other's stories, knowing that we too have been there. I want to hear your stories, and I would love to be able to share them with you. If you want to come share your version of how your attachment style manifested in your love life, please email me on magsmindset@gmail.com. I can't wait to hear from you.